Hello, everyone, and welcome to HackerTV, our in-house podcast for Rajasthan's biggest hackathon, AceHack. And this year, we are bringing the fourth edition of AceHack, that is AceHack 4.0. हमने ऑलरेडी हमारा हैकाथन लॉन्च कर दिया है एंड थीम भी अनाउंस कर दिया है जो कि है साइबर पंक. सो प्लीज गो अहेड एंड चेक दैट आउट एंड वी हैव फाइनली ओपनड आवर रजिस्ट्रेशंस. जी हाँ, रजिस्ट्रेशंस भी ओपन हो चुके हैं, तो जिन लोगों ने भी रजिस्टर नहीं किया है अभी तक, प्लीज गो अहेड एंड रजिस्टर. आप लोग टीम्स में कर सकते हैं, आप लोग सोलो भी रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं, विच इज न्यू फॉर अस बिकॉज हमने ये पब्लिक डिमांड पे लाया है इस बार. आप लोग एक दो तीन या चार के टीम्स में कर सकते हैं रजिस्टर. So please go ahead and do that. And also don't forget to follow us on social media so that you don't miss out on anything for this amazing 24-hour hackathon experience where you'll not only code and build but also innovate, elevate, and transform your levels to the next year. I am your host Biraj, and this is the fourth episode of Hacker TV. And our guest today is not one and not two, but together he has co-founded two startups. Pele, he was a part of Slick Wallet, and now he is the co-founder of Epoch Control. And of course, he is a tech enthusiast, and he also happens to have multiple hackathon experiences as a participant as well as a mentor. So please welcome Mr. Abhimanyu Shekhawat.
Hey everyone,
Hello, Abhimanyu Bhaiya, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
बहुत बढ़िया. Everything is fine. Everything is going well. So to kick things off, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Abhimanyu and I'm co-founder of Epoch Protocol. So I have been working in Web3 for like last 7 years now,
Right.
and this is my second startup. I sold the previous one to a big org, and like apart from like Epoch Protocol, I worked with some of the biggest Web3 companies. I have been like I have won a lot of hackathons, mentored a lot of hackathons, and then like I have worked with a lot of different company as a consultant or like in full-time capacity, and like I have contributions in like a lot of big projects in Web3. So yeah, I'm like knee deep in like Web3.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. तो आपका वेब थ्री में काफी एक्सपीरियंस रह चुका है. आई एम श्योर आपने काफी अप्स एंड डाउन्स भी देखे होंगे अपनी जर्नी में. तो कुड यू शेयर सम की माइलस्टोन्स ऑफ योर जर्नी इन ब्लॉकचेन एंड वेब थ्री विद अस?
Okay. Uh, it's not okay. I'll start with something that's not exactly a milestone, but it's quite interesting story.
Yeah.
So the first Web3 org that I worked with full time, I handled a lot of smart contracts for them. And interestingly, the first smart contract that I was deploying for them, at that time gas fees in blockchain was like super high, and we had to pay like $16,000 just to deploy a smart contract. So
Right.
that was
That's a
like
lot.
that was like the first mainnet deployment for me, and it was like quite an interesting story. But apart from that, another big milestone for me would be like uh, starting my own venture with one of my co-founders, Akshit. That was Slick Wallet, where we had more than 17,000 users. And another milestone can be like selling that wallet itself. And now, like, I'm enjoying being a founder, like uh, doing a lot of research on cool new ideas, exploring a lot of things, and like shipping things regularly. So that's quite interesting for me right now.
राइट, दैट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. आई एम श्योर आपने जब स्विच किया होगा फ्रॉम स्लिक वॉलेट टू इपॉक, दैट मस्ट हैव बीन क्वाइट द ट्रांजिशन इन योर लाइफ, राइट? आपका आपकी लाइफ का एक बहुत बड़ा ट्रांजिशन का पार्ट था, राइट?
हाँ.
तो उसी के बारे में कैन यू शेयर द जर्नी of Slick Wallet to Epoch Protocol and how it really shaped your blockchain and Web3 experience in general?
That's actually a very good question because like मैंने at least 7 to 8 months लिए just to explore कि what next. I want to like do something that I feel is fun and that will have done right leave an impact in the space. So that was like my exploration point. So I tried a lot of different things, not just like brainstorming on ideas, but doing small POCs or like talking to a lot of people just to figure out कि करना क्या है. And then I was like, okay, this thing, this problem, like Epoch started with blockchain automation, then it transitioned to many other things. But at that point, it seemed like, okay, this is something interesting and no one is doing it, so why not me? So I pinged my previously co-founder Akshit and one of my friend Manag, saying, Bhai, this looks really interesting and no one is doing it. I think we should try it out at least once. And eventually we ended up raising some money from Singapore-based investor as well as like a big company from Switzerland. And then we shifted off to Epoch Protocol full time. And now like it's been a year since I've been doing Epoch Protocol. But I think it's very important to take some time and just explore कि क्या करने में मजा आ रहा है. And once you have the clarity, okay, this problem seems interesting enough, and I think I can dedicate next a lot of years or at least a few years of my life solving this thing out, then you should just jump right in.
हाँ डेफिनेटली ऑफ कोर्स आई होप आपका ये जर्नी और बहुत सालों तक कंटिन्यू हो एंड you've been a part of two startups now
हम्म,
and आपका जो सेकंड स्टार्टअप है दैट इज कॉल्ड इपॉक प्रोटोकॉल
हाँ हाँ
तो आपने जब इपॉक प्रोटोकॉल एक्चुअली शुरू किया था देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ थिंकिंग एंड लॉट ऑफ ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग दैट गोज इनटू क्रिएटिंग एनीथिंग राइट
हाँ हाँ
कुछ भी हम लोग क्रिएट करना चाहे बहुत सारे आइडियाज की जरूरत पड़ती है
हाँ
तो मेरा एक छोटा सा सवाल है कि आप लोग जब शुरू कर रहे थे इपॉक प्रोटोकॉल
हाँ.
तो हाउ डिड यू कम अप विद द नेम इपॉक प्रोटोकॉल
Okay, another interesting story. Firstly, ki you have a valid point. Ki a lot of brainstorming goes into a lot of things.
हाँ
Like in fact, even today we were on a 6 hour call just discussing कि नहीं ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, नहीं ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, just figuring things out for next steps. But it's like a never-ending journey. But as for the name, since it started out as an automation tool or a protocol that allowed users to automate their Web3 transactions, Epoch seemed like a fitting name. Reason being, epoch means a time interval,
या
and it's extensively used terms in like if you are working in tech, you will know what epoch time is or like a Unix timestamp is,
या
or if you're in working in Web3, you will just call a slot of time interval as epochs. So everyone knows what it means, but no other company had taken this name. So we're
या
like, this perfect name fits perfectly well with what we intend to do. And it's abstract enough if we like expand to more things, it's abstract enough to allow us that wiggle room. So that's how we ended up on this Epoch Protocol name.
दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी एंड मैंने आपको ये क्वेश्चन इसीलिए पूछा बिकॉज आई फाउंड द नेम वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्योंकि मैंने पहले इपॉक नाम कहीं पे यूज नहीं देखा किसी भी कंपनी पे सो आई रियली लाइक द कंपनीज नेम दैट्स
Thank you.
रियली कूल तो आपकी कंपनी में इपॉक में देयर इज दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ इंटेंट्स राइट तो
हाँ.
could you explain what exactly are intents and how epoch is leveraging them for chain abstraction
Hmm. Okay. So I'll also give a bit of context. Like
हाँ
when we were working on automation, it was a big problem for user to define कि भाई automate करना क्या है.
हाँ
Like how do they define what needs to be automated or like उनका actual requirement क्या है? And that's when we started exploring, okay, how we can solve this like small seeming problem, but
हम्म,
it wasn't very small at that point. So that's how we started looking into this problem, and we were like, okay, intents seem like a fitting solution. And I'll explain what intents are, but in general, intent seemed a fitting solution, and we looked like, okay, but what we need is not being done by anyone.
right
So maybe we can like expand our goal into like taking intents in as well. And now speaking of intents, it's sort of like you tell कि you define a loosely defined term saying कि भाई मुझे blockchain पे ये चीज achieve करनी है and I'm willing to give this particular thing or like I'm willing to give this much money on this specific blockchain and I need ये specific DeFi position, I need ये specific NFT, I need these specific tokens on this very specific chain. And then they leave everything out on to Epoch protocol or maybe some other intent solution to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And intent is basically just defining what your intentions are, and the underlying protocol figures out the entire path for it. It's like a kid asking for ice cream to their parents and not at all caring about कि भाई ice cream आ कहाँ से रही है. It's up to parents to drive the car to the shop, get an ice cream, and get back to their kid. So it's sort of like that. Key starting point is kid wanting an ice cream, and final
हम्म,
destination is him getting an ice cream. But the entire journey gets abstracted away from users. So in the same way, when you speak of like multiple chains, a user can ask for anything on any different chain, and Epoch Protocol figures out like abstract away all the complexities of
हम्म।
multiple chains as well.
राइट दैट्स अ वेरी यूनिक कॉन्सेप्ट एक्चुअली मुझे बहुत मजा आया ये सुन के
Yes.
तो मेरा एक काफी टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन है आपसे
Mhm.
कि हाउ डू रस्ट एंड लाइट क्लाइंट्स
Mhm.
इन्फ्लुएंस ब्लॉकचेन स्केलेबिलिटी एंड अडॉप्शन?
Okay. So I think this is coming from the time I was working with Avil.
या.
So what Light Client does is, like if you look at blockchains, if you run a full node, which is basically nodes are basically one copy of the entire blockchain, and then there are multiple nodes running, and every node contains all the data that blockchain has. So if you just want to run like a Ethereum ka node, it it's a lot of DevOps effort. It requires like terabytes of data. It requires a lot of infrastructure and everything. And you need a node to send your transactions to the blockchain.
राइट.
So either you host your own node, which is very difficult to start with, or you find a certain third party who do it for you. But then when if you find a third party, you trust that third party to send your transactions as they are. So think of it like this, कि Paytm allows you to make UPI transactions, but you trust Paytm कि भाई वो सही से सारा transaction execute करवाएगा.
हाँ.
Or
ओके.
you can like take example of PhonePe or any other UPI app. You trust them कि भाई whatever I'm entering as the value कि 400 रुपए का transaction हो 500 रुपए का transaction हो वही exact चीज हो. You're trusting them.
हाँ.
What
राइट.
Light Client does this, they are like a very small client. Like instead of hosting a very big node, they are like a very small software that can even run like my Apple Watch or something. And they just randomly check if the data that's on the blockchain is correct or not. And using that Light client, firstly, you can see if you are supposed to trust other nodes or not. That
राइट.
is basically you can see कि भाई तुम्हें Paytm को trust करना है कि नहीं. And if you want to send transactions, it's sort of like कि तुम खुद अपने ही फोन से डायरेक्टली यूपीआई के सर्वर्स पे ट्रांजैक्शन भेज रहे हो
राइट.
bypassing बीच का पेटीएम. So you don't have to trust anyone. You just have to know कि यूपीआई वाले मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन सही एग्जीक्यूट करेंगे and this is what I want to execute. So you bypass everything in between and तुम खुद के फोन पे एक लाइट क्लाइंट चला के डायरेक्टली ट्रांजैक्शन भेज सकते हो या फिर इवन ऑन योर वॉच और लैपटॉप एनीथिंग लाइक दैट and you don't have to deal with all the DevOps complexities or anything else.
राइट. दैट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टू हियर. अब टेक्निकल बातें हमने थोड़ी कर ली.
हाँ
अब लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सम ऑफ द बेसिक स्टफ. ठीक है, बीच बीच में विल टॉक अबाउट सम
हाँ
ऑफ द बेसिक
हाँ
स्टफ. या तो आप आपको ब्लॉकचेन में आए एग्जैक्टली कितने साल हो गए? कितना लंबा एक्सपीरियंस हो गया?
I think I entered in this space in 2018.
राइट.
So it's been almost 6 or 7 years now. So, हाँ, 6, 7 years, I think. हाँ.
राइट. और आई वांट टू आस्क यू अ वेरी पर्सनल क्वेश्चन राइट नाउ. एज इन मेरे मेरे लिए पर्सनल है, जो कि मैं देखता हूँ अपने कॉलेज में बहुत ज्यादा कि पीपल फाइंड इट डिफिकल्ट टू रियली चूज अ पाथ फॉर देमसेल्व्स कि कहाँ कौन सा पाथ सिलेक्ट करें, कहाँ पे जाएं. तो इसी चक्कर में दे कम अक्रॉस वेब 3 एंड इवेंचुअली दे कम अक्रॉस ब्लॉकचेन इटसेल्फ, बट दे गेट इनटू इट. दे व्हेन दे डोंट अंडरस्टैंड इट, उनको एग्जैक्टली पता नहीं होता क्या चल रहा है, दे जस्ट गिव अप ऑन इट. तो मैं आपसे जानना चाहता हूँ कि आपने अपनी ब्लॉकचेन की जर्नी कैसे शुरू की? व्हाट गॉट यू इंस्पायर्ड अबाउट ब्लॉकचेन एंड वेब 3 इन जनरल?
So interestingly, it started with hackathons.
राइट.
Not that कि hackathon में जाके I found blockchain, but a friend of mine who is also my co-founder right now, we both were like कि कुछ interesting ढूंढते हैं जो करने में मजा आए. And we stumbled across Bitcoin light papers and all the Web3 related things. And the key driving factor was like we liked the entire ideology. Ki, firstly, the trustlessness. Ki, even if you have some money in your bank, you trust the bank कि भाई वो पैसा safe रखेगा.
हाँ.
And that's just financial part of it. If you put something on Wikipedia as an article, if someone wants, they can like censor it. They can do a lot of things. If you put it on Medium, it can be censored. So the entire ideology ki bhai everything is trustless and censorship resistant. It was something like we found very interesting कि भाई this thing looks interesting. Let's just try things out. And instead of like कि हम गए and साल भर लगा रहे सब सीखने में, what we did was we went to all the hackathons that we could, and हर hackathon में we were building different products around it.
राइट.
Initially, they were like very shitty products कि भाई कुछ चल ही नहीं रहा है, कुछ नहीं हो रहा है.
हाँ.
And with time, they started to become better, and we started to like the space more and more as well. So that was like our initial starting point. And interestingly, after some point, we even started like winning a lot of hackathons as well. So journey started from hackathons and just looking for something कि मजा क्या करने में आ रहा है.
हाँ, राइट, यही बात है ना कि यू हैव टू स्टिक टू समथिंग फॉर यू टू रियली एंजॉय इट।
हाँ
अभी लोग दे डोंट स्टिक विद इट फॉर इनफ टाइम टू रियली एंजॉय इट। उन
हाँ
लोगों को मतलब लोगों को इन जनरल, इनफैक्ट मैं भी करता हूँ ये काफी टाइम, कि ऐसा होता है थोड़े टाइम के बाद चीजें थोड़ी मुश्किल होने शुरू हो जाती हैं,
हाँ,
एंड देन वी लाइक स्टेप बैक ऑन द सब्जेक्ट कि ठीक है अब कुछ नया सीखते हैं। तो ये चीज बहुत होती है, तो आई थिंक एवरीवन शुड take inspiration from you regarding this matter कि stick with it and मजा eventually आने ही लगेगा।
या फिर अगर मजा आ रहा है तो स्टिक विद इट आफ्टर यू ट्राई इट फॉर
हाँ
लाइक 4-5 months. अगर नहीं आ रहा है तो फाइंड समथिंग एल्स दैट्स इंटरेस्टिंग. बट इफ
हाँ
यू स्टार्ट एंजॉयिंग इट देन स्टिक विद इट.
हाँ डेफिनेटली। तो you have worked with Polygon Labs, right, if I'm not wrong? So what key lessons did you learn building DApp marketplaces for unstoppable domains and Polygon Labs as well?
So, okay, so I worked with Polygon Labs as an outside consultant. Since we had good experience from Slick Wallet and everything, so we decided to help them out with some of like two of their products. One was a dApp store kit, which was like a Play Store version, but for Web3 apps, and and as well as like Unstoppable Domains was a partner with them as well. So, firstly, the idea here was any dApp that were live on Polygon, they should be accessible through your mobile phones,
Right.
and you should be able to connect with them through your wallet through that dApp store. So one thing that we worked on was sort of like a Play Store app sort of thing, but it was for like all the Web3 apps. It was like quick 2 month project or something. And then we spent like another 1 or 2 months working for the same iteration, like similar thing, but for unstoppable domains as well, but a web version of it. But the differences were interestingly like both required like exactly same product in different platforms. But when we got to like deeper down details of it, things were like quite different. Like there were a lot of things कि Polygon was okay, हाँ ये ऐसे हो रहा है हमें चलेगा and this is the way it should be. And there were a lot of things that were like non-negotiable for unstoppable domains कि
Right.
भाई हमें exactly ऐसी ही चीज चाहिए and if it's not like this, it's not going to work for us. So even when they had like same specification for or like same requirement for a product and they wanted to build like similar products, the deeper details were totally different. Like it was not at all similar.
Right.
So, like key takeaway from the entire thing was like once you become big enough, like for us, we are still not big enough,
Hmm.
but once you become big enough, you have to like look at like smallest of details for the product that are going out. Well, especially once you're out of that experimental phase. And once you have like all those details carefully crafted out, a lot of things becomes non-negotiable for you. And yeah, it's like it's the transition. Like when you're doing 0 to 1, you have a lot of flexibility कि ये चल जाएगा, ये नहीं चलेगा, या फिर कैसे क्या बनाना है. But once you're doing like 1 to 100, which is like the second stage of a startup, things become more and more non-negotiable for you.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, आपका जो पहला startup था was
Uh-huh.
Slick Wallet, right? So
Uh-huh.
I want to ask a question regarding that. कि what were the challenges that you faced while you were building Slick Wallet, and आपने उन challenges को कैसे face किया और कैसे overcome किया?
So, okay, so if you work in Web3, one thing that's pretty important is whoever your user is, उनका पैसा रिस्क पे नहीं होना चाहिए.
हाँ.
So, if you're a Web3 startup and someone is doing, let's say, $1 million transaction through you, and if you mess something up, that $1 million might become totally lost.
Hmm.
And it's sort of like everything needs to be like triple or like 5 times checked, even by every single person before it goes to production.
हाँ.
So we learned it the hard way. I probably should not disclose the story, but the biggest takeaway from the entire wallet experience or like working in Web3 in general is if you're involving users, you make sure like nothing breaks. And
हाँ.
even if something breaks, you make sure there are fallback mechanisms to take care of it. कि user का पैसा गायब ना हो. And it's
Hmm.
not just like my own story. I heard a lot of similar stories from like co-founder of MetaMask as well. They face like very unique problems कि भाई लोगों का पैसा ही दिखना बंद हो गया and they were bombarded with emails through the holiday season and everything. But that's like the biggest takeaway for me. Like security should be the top concern for everyone.
Yeah, security should be top notch when it comes to Web3. या तो सेम क्वेश्चन फॉर इपॉक प्रोटोकॉल आपने जब शुरुआत कर रहे थे तो क्या क्या एग्जैक्टली चैलेंजेस आपको मिले थे?
So, okay, this time I think I'll take it from a bit non-technical point of view as well.
हाँ.
But though I'll start with the technical side of it, which is easier to explain. Ki in Web3, you need to use a lot of moving pieces to work with each other.
हाँ.
Like you don't build entire stack खुद से. You use किसी ने कुछ वो बना रखा है, you'll use that. किसी ने कुछ वो component बना रखा है, you'll use that, and then you'll build your own thing out.
राइट.
The problem is, in theory, everything looks like सब एक साथ perfectly काम करेगा. But when you get deeper, like you conceptualize your entire idea कि हाँ ये ऐसे चल जाएगा, ये ऐसे चल जाएगा, ये ऐसे चल जाएगा. And when you start building things out, you realize कि भाई ये चीज़ तो possible है ही नहीं. Can't do this. You can't change सामने वाले का code because it's already live on blockchain. And your idea might not work if you don't find a workaround. That's sort of like a non-technical part of it.
राइट.
And like that's the technical part of it. And non-technical part of it is like it's probably more true with a lot of Asian folks, including us Indians and like Asian people. They have a tendency to say this sounds amazing or this is like very interesting thing. So if you tell your idea to someone, they'll say, हाँ भाई बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, this sounds so amazing, this is brilliant, ये वो. Even if they mean it or do not mean it. So it's very difficult to get like honest feedback
हाँ.
before they are able to actually use it. कि if you force someone कि भाई इसको use करो तो बता क्या कमी है, and I want to be an actual user, that's the point they'll actually start giving like true feedback. But
राइट.
before that, it's very difficult to get honest feedback. सब बोलेंगे मुंह पे बोलेंगे कि भाई बहुत ही अच्छी चीज लग रही है, this sounds so amazing, just do it ये वो. But when you actually ask them to use it, that's when the actual feedback starts coming in.
राइट. फीडबैक इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एक्चुअली ऑनेस्ट फीडबैक इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. राइट. So, when it comes to blockchain projects and in general Web3 projects, I personally think कि innovation और user accessibility इन दोनों का एक बहुत ही fine balance होना चाहिए, right?
हाँ हाँ.
So, how do you balance these two aspects in a blockchain project? Balance that is innovation with user accessibility.
So So Web3 में सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आई थिंक अभी भी यूजर एक्सपीरियंस है लाइक टू
हाँ,
आउटसाइडर इट्स लाइक इंटिमिडेटिंग
yeah,
फर्स्टली दे डू नॉट अंडरस्टैंड कि क्या चल रहा है एंड इवन इफ दे अंडरस्टैंड कि चल क्या रहा है इट्स एक्सेसिबिलिटी प्रॉब्लम कि दे डोंट नो कि हाउ टू गेट इन्वॉल्व कि
it's
ट्रांजैक्शंस
very
कैसे होंगे.
difficult to navigate.
So and these are some things that we learned the hard way कि आप जो भी प्रोडक्ट बना रहे हो इफ यू आर मेकिंग कि जो लोग ऑलरेडी वेब3 में हैं उनके लिए बना रहे हो
Hmm.
you need to stick to the flows that are working. Agar you change even the slightest of flow, they will start having like trust issues saying भाई हमने तो ऐसी चीज कभी नहीं करी हमें तो दिक्कत है क्या पता सिक्योरिटी में कुछ आ जाए हमारा पैसा गायब हो जाए we won't do it. And if you make something for like a general user who is coming new to Web3, they would use it, but the problem would be कि जो नया बंदा आ रहा है they usually tend to have lower volume कि कितने पैसे का transaction कर रहे हैं and that
Right.
might not make it profitable for you. But also I think it depends कि तुम्हारा product का positioning क्या है. Like for Epoch Protocol, it's a bit away from actual users. But when we were doing Slick Wallet, we were trying to find कि हमारा balance क्या है कि Web3 वाले ही लोगों को target करना है कि non Web3 वालों को target करना है. And I think दोनों के totally different flows होने चाहिए and होंगे. Because जो वेब नेटिव है they will stick to what they're doing and नए लोगों को चाहिए चाहिए easier flows. So I think totally two different classes of apps कि इसके like new users can transit to like more difficult apps, but starting के लिए भी एक अलग से interface होना चाहिए I guess.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So, आजकल the entire buzz in the tech field is around artificial intelligence, right?
हाँ.
AI as well as IoT, Internet of Things.
हाँ.
So, in the foreseeable future, how do you see blockchain intersecting with this AI, IoT, and also quantum computing?
हाँ. Speaking of quantum computing, it's problematic and I think a lot of people are working on solving it.
Hmm.
कि blockchain works on these encryptions and like asymmetric encryption keys जो कि if you have a quantum computer, they can pretty much break it really quickly.
Yeah.
जो भी traditional computers में, which is not possible. So that's one problematic thing, and people are already working around finding solutions for it. And when you look at something like AI, the coolest thing that I see happening is there are some AI agents. They started their own Twitter page. उन्होंने खुद का token निकाला. They started doing a lot of marketing खुद से ही on Twitter page and doing this and that. And people simply started treating them as meme coins and started buying their tokens and pumping it up. And the creators of that AI agent and all the people involved, they started making a lot of money. But that's just an AI agent engaging the community. The other interaction that I see is AI is being able to tell ki what's profitable for you on blockchain. Like there's a lot of DeFi activities, there's a lot of NFTs, there are a lot of things. And AI agents can tell कि भाई क्या profitable है, क्या profitable नहीं है.
Right.
And when you look at IoT, I think there's a less of intersection, but maybe supply chain we can use Ajay. But that's pretty much it.
राइट एक्चुअली मैं भी काफ़ी इंटरेस्टेड हूँ इन सीइंग हाउ ब्लॉकचेन एंड एआई आर कंबाइंड एंड इवन क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग बिकॉज क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग इज आल्सो हैज बीन अराउंड द बज फॉर क्वाइट अ व्हाइल नाउ तो
हाँ.
क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग काफ़ी टाइम से थोड़ा बहुत चल रहा है तो आई एम वेरी इंटरेस्टेड इन सीइंग कि कैसे ये लोग डेवलप करते हैं फ्यूचर के लिए तो लेट्स सी एंड नाउ आपने मेंशन किया कि आप काफी सारे हैकाथॉन्स के पार्ट रह चुके हैं एज अ पार्टिसिपेंट एंड आल्सो एज अ मेंटर तो आई एम श्योर ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम यू हैव सीन multiple projects based on hacker projects based on blockchain and web3 in general तो आप हमारे साथ ऐसा कोई एक प्रोजेक्ट अगर शेयर कर पाए which really stood out in your opinion that would be great
Does it need to be a hackathon project or या फिर कुछ भी interesting project जो कि people
say
relate to?
can you do both actually
Okay. So सबसे interesting project that I like in general is there's this thing called Anon Aadhaar. So
okay
a friend of mine was working on that project and उसका concept ये है कि when you go and use Facebook, वो
Mhm.
let's say आपको बोलता है कि if you're older than 13 you can use it. You disclose your date of birth and your all your information and it lets you in. Same for
Right.
Instagram, Twitter and everything.
Mhm.
या फिर it's just like one check date of birth. किसी को कुछ और डिटेल्स वेरीफाई करनी है, किसी को कुछ और डिटेल्स वेरीफाई करनी है.
Right.
And you end up disclosing all your identity to all these platforms. What Anon Aadhaar does is कि it there is something called ZK proof. It
Mhm.
generates a ZK proof out of your identity card. And what that proof does is it says you're older than 13 without actually disclosing your age. It's mathematically verifiable. So it's sort of difficult how it happens, like difficult to explain. But these sort of ZK proofs can like revolutionize how you disclose your identity as well. Ki if some airline asks you, "Bhai, what's your are you citizen of like if not airline but maybe uh, some random thing like एक तो Facebook वाला example हो गया या फिर wherever you need to disclose your identity instead of disclosing full detail you can just disclose the constraints of it like if some website asks कि आपकी income कितनी है and they require your ITR receipts or something you can give them a ZK proof saying कि भाई इस range से इस range के बीच में है now do whatever you need to do with this information without
हाँ
actually disclosing your entire income. So these are the kind of things that are possible with that technology or like with that project. And I find it quite interesting in general. But also if you talk about like Web3 specific projects in hackathons, so it's sort of like what I like is sort of difficult if you are new to Web3, but I have found people doing like a lot of cool things. Most relatable project that I can explain probably is there was this project back in 2019. So it was a lot before time when things had matured.
Mhm.
But what it did was in Web3, you have these private keys that you need to actually make transactions. And if you
Mhm.
lose it, you can't do anything about it. You lost your money as well.
Right.
So what that project does was it used like before like creating a wallet, you can pick three random locations on map. And as long as you pick the same three random location on map, you can get your original private key back and you can make transactions. So even if you lose your private key, You just need to remember कि हाँ मेरे को एक मेरा घर पसंद है, एक let's say college or something, and I like
Hmm.
this real nice place I've been to so many years back. If you pick those three specific locations on map any time, you get your private key back. So that was like sort of interesting approach to the entire problem that I found.
That's a very interesting project. मैंने भी पहले ऐसा कोई प्रोजेक्ट सुना नहीं है। तो अ, आप काफ़ी सारे हैकाथॉन्स में मेंटर भी रहे हैं, राइट? सो
हाँ हाँ
आपको जभी भी कोई ब्लॉकचेन या वेब3 का प्रोजेक्ट देखने को मिलता है,
हाँ
सो यू एज़ अ मेंटर, व्हाट डू यू
हाँ
एक्सपेक्ट फ्रॉम दैट प्रोजेक्ट विदाउट इवन लुकिंग एट दैट प्रोजेक्ट? आपका माइंडसेट क्या रहता
वेब थ्री प्रोजेक्ट्स में मेरा माइंडसेट टू स्टार्ट विद ये रहता है कि पहले कि इज इट देयर फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट
है?
अगर पहला प्रोजेक्ट आई एक्सपेक्ट देम टू बिल्ड थिंग्स दैट हैव बीन पीपल आर बिल्डिंग इन हैकाथॉन्स फ्रॉम लाइक 2018 2019 उससे भी पहले से समथिंग लाइक टोकनाइजिंग रियल एस्टेट या फिर uh, किसी ज्वेलरी का एनएफटी पीसेस वो करना या फिर कुछ भी ऐसी चीजें जो कि नॉर्मली चल रही लाइक मार्कशीट वर्कशीट पर डाल दी ये सारे प्रोजेक्ट
हाँ,
एंड दैट इज फाइन फॉर देम बिकॉज दे आर स्टिल एंटरिंग द स्पेस एंड इट विल टेक देम सम टाइम if you talk about something like someone who have been in the space or like doing hackathons for like 2 3 years, what I expect out of them is कि they should have a lot more context कि space में चल क्या रहा है
हम्म,
and their whatever they're building should be relevant to the current situation of the space. Like currently there is a lot of hype going around AI agents. So if you have been Web3 or like you have been doing hackathons for like last 3 years or something, I would expect कि you are building maybe some AI agent that does a very specific thing that you ask it to do, or maybe something around ZK proofs or some fully homomorphic encryptions, which are like currently hype of the entire Web3 space. But that is when you have been in the space for some time. And like there can be a lot of examples for each specific space, but I would like to see you working on these things.
राइट। हाँ, that's very good. So whenever we mention Web3 या फिर
Mhm,
blockchain in general,
mhm,
the next thing that comes to mind is security, right?
mhm,
How's the security? तो security and blockchain यही दो चीजें are the key themes for our hackathon AceHack
mhm,
4.0. तो मैं आपसे सुनना चाहूंगा कि what innovative ideas do you think participants can explore in these
mhm,
areas in our hackathon?
hmm. Although I know people are working on this, but I would love to see like exactly ये चीज कि
हाँ,
maybe someone writes AI solution or AI agent that does give you a preliminary check of whatever you're interacting in Web3.
right.
Like in Web3, it's easy to get scammed, but
हाँ,
before you send a transaction, if something analyzes कि भाई ये transaction सही है भी कि नहीं, then that would be a plus thing. There can be things that there can be extensions that prevent you from getting scammed by phishing sites and all those, although
right.
they have been tried a lot of times. But it's still good to explore, like if you can find some more unique ways out of it.
हाँ,
But when you explicitly talk about, let's say, Web3 or security, like as two separate entities, for Web3, I would love to see something maybe around uh, something in terms of like there are cool things coming out. Like yesterday, I was talking to someone called Polymer. What they do is they help you prove on-chain data on two different chains. Like it's sort of difficult to explain, but कि ये चीज इस chain पे हुई, you can prove on the second chain in a trustless manner. कि आपको किसी को कुछ trust नहीं करना पड़ रहा. So something out of those themes should be really interesting. And when you talk about security, uh, I think security is more of like real-time audits thing. कि
yeah.
जो भी तुम कर रहे हो, like if you're interacting with, you're making a UPI transaction,
Hmm.
maybe you provide audit on top of that कि भाई तुम किसी scammer को पैसा ना भेज रहे हो, or maybe something that allows people to report कि भाई मैंने इस बंदे को पैसा भेजा and he was a scammer,
हाँ,
or या फिर something else can be there like तुम किसी fake site पे payment नहीं कर रहे, इस type की चीजें can still be there, or like just something that helps you keep your laptop safe in some ways.
हाँ, दैट्स ग्रेट। आई एम श्योर हमारे जो हैकर्स आने वाले हैं वो ये पॉडकास्ट देखें और ये सारे आइडियाज को दे पुट इनटू गुड यूज। तो हमारे हैकाथॉन में वी नॉट ओनली हेल्प आवर, मतलब वी नॉट ओनली गिव आवर हैकर्स द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू कोड एंड बिल्ड, बट वी
Uh,
also give them the opportunity to have fun and
mhm,
have a lot of interaction around them. So we have everything planned for them. It's like
uh-huh,
a full package. So everything is there. You code, you build, you have fun, you stuff your mouth with food, you listen to music, you dance, you interact with thousands of people around you. It's a great experience. So what advice would you give our AceHack 4.0 participants to stand out with their projects, especially in blockchain and security, while also enjoying the hackathon?
Okay, this is something that I always tell everyone कि भाई make a lot of good connections.
Right.
The first good hackathon that I went to was in Allahabad at Triple IT Allahabad. I think it was called Hack for the North. But
Right.
interestingly, I met like two interesting people there, and we worked together for like 3 or 4 years on a lot of really good projects with a lot of good companies, all together, like brainstorming on things and shipping things out. So make sure you meet a lot of interesting people and find synergies with them. That should be the primary goal, taki even after hackathon ends, you can keep on working together with them and like helping each other out to achieve your own goals or like finding your way through the entire space. And in terms of like making a project stand out, I think you should have a very clear idea of what you're solving.
Mhm.
Secondly, why it should be solved. And firstly, make sure you paint a really good picture in front of anyone who is like listening to you. Ki bhai, this is the problem. This is the reason this is so big problem, like such a big problem. And now when everyone is intrigued कि भाई हाँ problem तो है, it is a big problem. They should be intrigued कि भाई तुम्हारा solution क्या आ रहा है. And then you ship out all in hackathons. It's usually like barely minimum working product, but you ship out a solution that justifies कि हाँ इसमें ये चीज solve हो सकती है. As long as you fulfill that goal, I think your project will stand out.
Right. Coming from you, I think that's great advice because आप इतने सारे hackathons के part रह चुके हैं as participant and also as a mentor. So I'm really grateful कि आपने ये advice हमारे hackers को दी, and I hope कि हमारे hackers put it into good use. So really, thank you very much, Abhimanyu Bhaiya, for joining with us today and sharing your wonderful insights about Web3 and Epoch Protocol with us. And just thank you for taking out the time. It's been a genuine pleasure hosting you.
Thank you so much for having me. Also, I've been part of ESEC for like past iterations as well, so
Yeah,
it's going to be a good one. So do join it.
yeah. So it is Rajasthan's biggest hackathon at this point, and we get footfall over 1,000 people, which is great.
Amazing.
Which is great,
Yes.
and the work is hectic, but it's also very fun, and the team is working very hard night and day, even while we are on our vacations. So that is great, and thank you everyone for watching this episode of Hacker TV. I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, stay connected, stay tuned, and keep hacking. Bye.
Thank you guys.